He's King James the Sixth and the First, Mr. Tony Curran. Hi.
Hi, Anthony. Nice to see you.
Hello. You could call him Prince Henry, Prince Robert, even He-Man. But in Mary and George, he plays George Villiers, the first Duke of Buckingham, Mr. Nicholas Galitzine. Hi.
Hi, how you doing?
She's an Oscar winner, two-time Emmy winner, two-time Golden Globe winner, and BAFTA winner as Mary Villiers, Countess of Buckingham. Hi, Julianne Moore.
Hi, Anthony. How are you?
Good. And before we start, let's take a look at a clip.
Your arrogance is unbound. You'll risk war to hide your failure. Have you not shed enough blood?
As if no man has died by your hand.
No innocent man. You are not who I raised.
Oh, that is all I am, Mother.
Oh, no, that is not fate.
You know I never speak against my son, but he's making a terrible mistake.
Don't start today. We each take our path, and yours is now decided. George and Charles shall go to London, address their concerns of this Madrid business of Spanish misbehavior, and you shall go home. You stayed long enough. And please, don't be concerned. We all want peace. But a message can be sent. Lines can be drawn. As George says, he can be born again. And I believe him. I do.
So let's start with all of you. What was it about the story that made you all want to be part of it?
I mean, honestly, I'm always intrigued. So much in our business, people talk about scripts and ideas, and they'll say, what's the plot? What's the pitch? What happens? And I'm always very interested, of course, in what happens, but mostly I'm interested in language because you can talk about what happens, but really it's what do they say to each other and how do they say it? And this one, right when I opened it up, the language was so alive. It was so different. It was incredibly elevated and very, very witty. And there was a lot of personality in every single one of these characters. So it really wasn't just about what happened, but it's about how do they communicate to one another. And it was quite unusual and really arresting. And I think that's what made me most intrigued by it.
I agree with Julie. I mean, I think this is, to read a period piece that felt so entirely unique and specific in tone and language. And yes, be sort of historical fiction, but cover a lot of true things that did occur in history. And then I think just I was a huge fan of Oliver's work already. I was a huge fan of Julie's work, and Tony, Tony's work as well, and it just kind of was a no-brainer to me.
As Julie said, there's a richness to the language and to the relationships with the characters, and as an actor, that's what you want to get your teeth into, and then if you can work together, which I think we all did as an ensemble, collaboration with some lovely other actors and the great crew, then you sort of elevate each other, and then you can, if you've got a good story and a good script and interesting, compelling dialogue, as that actor, it's your responsibility to heighten that and to sort of, to immerse yourself into it even more. So that it was as Nick said, it was a no-brainer, and it was, I think everybody that was part of this show really relished being part of it. Yeah.
So, Nicholas, do you think George would have become so powerful in England without his mother pushing him? I'm wondering if you could talk about the push and pull of their relationship.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, I love that line where he says, I'm exactly what you made me. I think that is very much. I think George has a lot of those same that sort of voracious appetite that his mother has, but I don't know if that maybe exists there naturally, or if Mary was just able to sort of uncover it. He had all these sort of natural inclinations, and being sent off to France, I think without that push from his mother, he doesn't really find out. I don't know if he sort of explores his sexuality in the way that he did, and every part of his education served to open more and more doors in his ascent to power. And so Mary is she's the genesis. She is the catalyst for all of it in a really fun way to play out. And I think that was really the joy of playing this character and these characters opposite each other, is going from sort of becoming sort of from being co-conspirators to really antagonizing each other towards the end was just such a fun progression.
And Nicholas, are you a second son in real life?
No, well, I'm a first son. I'm a second child, so I guess maybe there's a parallel there. I don't know.
And Julianne, can you talk about that power dynamic with George? I mean, you bring a new definition of tough love.
Yeah, she's tough. She's very tough. I think it is interesting when you bring up the thing about him being a second son, because there's something I feel like Mary feels a kinship with this child, because she's like, basically her position as a female in this society affords her absolutely no power. She's aware that his position as second-born son will give him that too. He's not going to have any. He's not going to have any ownership or any access to anything, much like her. But what she sees in him, and this is actually even historically, Mary tried to educate both of her sons, but was told by the tutor that neither one were very academic. That George, in fact, was a great dancer and was incredibly charming. So in real life, she leaned into that part of his education. I think in our show, what she sees is that he's charming and is entertaining and is beautiful and is kind of everything that can get you ahead. So she is absolutely the architect of his career, right? And I think what she's, like I said, what she sees is someone who can be her proxy, who can achieve things that by virtue of being male that she can't. And she's also, I mean, she's incredibly consumed by her ambition. She's voracious. She disregards personal relationships, or she values, I think, her ambition over her personal relationships. And it's not just, oddly, she left her children all pretty well off and ended up being buried in Westminster Abbey. What that's her character, I don't know, but she certainly arranged for her children to be in a better place, I think, financially and socially than they started out. But I don't know that she was the easiest or the nicest. And it was an interesting thing to explore with Nick too, this constant pushing, this constant, I think Mary feels like she doesn't have enough time and that he's got to get this stuff done and it's for his own good. But it really is it's rough. It's rough.
Tony, what did you know about King James before the project? Did you learn anything interesting about him?
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, in the past, when I left drama school in 1993, I went straight from Glasgow to Edinburgh, and I did a play called Mary, Queen of Scots Got Her Head Chopped Off. It was written by Liz Lockhead, and in that, I actually played my father, Lord Darnley, who subsequently gets assassinated and blown up. And then, of course, Mama gets executed by Queen Elizabeth. So it's interesting. In Scotland at the time, even in your own country, you'd have to go and dig around for your some of your historical past. Characters like Wallace or Rob Roy or other sort of historical figures maybe were more available. But I knew about King James, but certainly when I started researching this and talking to Benjamin Woolley, reading the book to a certain extent, but actually talking to him was like a sort of history, Encyclopedia Britannica. His mind, he's so sort of knowledgeable about that period in history. And a lot of what I maybe conveyed on screen with the relationships of Mary, with George, Benjamin helped me greatly. You know, he would always say, "Look into his eyes. What do you think?" You know, and there was always this term, "He's nourished in fear," because he was always looking over his shoulder. King James, you know, he got kidnapped when he was a young man. Um, you know, when the gunpowder plot, he was only in London for a year and a half, and they tried to blow up Parliament with his family, and so yeah, I think his paranoia was obviously well placed. But then when he meets the Villiers, you know, he thinks he's you know, he thinks he's met these very loyal people, which, and he obviously did make them the Duke and Duchess of Buckingham, which he broke precedent at that time because they were sort of lower status aristocracy, and you know, Duke and Duchessdom, if you will, was sort of supposed to be saved for other royals, but because he liked them so much, he bestowed that upon them. So, yeah. Interesting cat.
So,
To put it mildly.
everyone, let's address the elephant in the room. Was there any other kind of currency used back in the 1600s other than sex? Like, were there shillings, or was there? I'm just curious.
Not in this
But,
show. Not in this
Yeah,
show.
I like this show.
Yeah.
In all seriousness, if you could talk about that, because historically speaking, sex was a currency in the court, and this reminds me, in a great way of, like, such works like Dangerous Liaisons.
love it. Love that film.
Well, I think that we did a panel just before this with our producers, and it was an historical fact that James had an romantic interest in men, and this is a period of time too where the only locus of power is the king. So everybody is trying to think, like, in order to gain power for themselves, or even any kind of security, financial security, they want to be close. They want to be in that court and as close to him as possible. And if that's what he likes, if he likes beautiful young men, then that's what people are going to find. That's what they're going to use, So I think in this particular period, in this particular court, under this particular ruler, people find that that is the access to power. But then it's also a very human thing too. It's like, these are people who get ahead by using whatever they have, by creating relationships where they can, and if a sexual power amounts to real power, they'll take it.
There seems to be a bit of an irony. I think we talked about this the other day, Julie, about the idea of Liza was saying this sort of Victorianism may have brought this sort of buttoned up, rigidness to sexuality. We seem to blame them, but maybe before that, well, to go back to the Romans, the Greeks, Caligula, or you talk about the Jacobean period was more loose, was more fluid. But then, of course, you could say, maybe American culture, British culture, it's a bit shameful behavior. But then again, King James did translate the King James Bible from, and apparently it sits in most hotel rooms next to someone's bed. So King James is never far from you. He's never far away from you. He's always in your bedroom, no matter where. No matter where you might be, you can open
Good
a
one,
chapter.
Tony.
Thou shalt not. Anyway, moving swiftly on.
Julianne, before we go, can you tell us about being an executive producer on the series and how you were involved in that regard?
I think it was just a piece of material that I was really interested in, and with other great creative partners. So it was something that I was happy to come aboard. And I also want to say, like, how fortunate I was as an American to kind of come into this extraordinarily wonderful cast, all from different areas of the UK. And all who were incredibly welcoming and supportive to me as an American. So this was a really unusual situation for me to find myself in. I've certainly played British characters before, but it's been a while, and this was pretty intense, pretty unknown to me. So I think that was my challenge as an actor and as a producer. But I was honestly, I was attracted to all of it because of this extraordinary group of wonderfully creative people. And these two actors, of course, I'm most among them. They were really, really wonderful.
Nicholas, before we go, how's the court going to be for He-Man? Will it be similar to,
I,
to Mary and George?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I think there's a lot of parallels between Jacobean England and Eternia. No, I don't think it will be very akin at all. But that's kind of a ways off now, 6 months away. So we'll see what will be.
Excellent. Stars as Mary and George. This has been Deadline's Virtual House for the series. I want to thank today's guests, Mr. Tony Curran.
Thank you. Great to speak to you, Anthony.
Nicholas Galitzine.
Cheers, Anthony. Thanks, mate.
And Julianne Moore. Thank you.
Bye, Anthony. Thank you so much. Thanks.